Welcome to the Anfield Review podcast. I'm Owen James. This is your Liverpool news update, guys. It's not a great Sunday, is it? After what was a fairly miserable Saturday on the south coast for Liverpool, backed up, of course, after coming on the back of Manchester United dropping points, Chelsea dropping points, and I've got to say, I look at the league table this morning, and yes, Liverpool do sit in those Champions League places probably, but you know what's really, really quite freaky and worrying is you look at that table. You look at how that table sits this morning, and you know what? It's not entirely, beyond the realms of possibility that even Everton could catch Liverpool this season. That even Everton could finish above us this season. They're only 3 points behind us, and they've still got us to play at home. Brentford as well, only 3 points behind us too. That chase for that extra Champions League spot, which looks like it will be available this season, it's going to go down to the wire. It really is, and you know what? How humiliating would it be to finish behind Everton? I mean, genuinely, that would be absolutely horrifically humiliating for this football club, and just wholly unacceptable. And look at our last few games. Last 3 games, 2 defeats, 1 draw, 1 point from a possible 9. It's just not acceptable, and it's just not good enough. Not at the business end of the season. Not when you need to be winning games and taking it to the next level. It's just wholly unacceptable to be in this position and to be talking like this. Even seeing, even the other podcasts, even some of the big, huge podcasts coming out, and people on there saying that it's time for him to go, it's time for change and things have got to be done. And this is the time to do it. If it's going to get done before the end of the season, which I highly doubt, this is the time to do it in the international break, to bring in somebody, to give them at least some time to work with the players who are not on away with international duty, and then obviously to work with the players when they come back from international duty. This is the point in time to do that. Maybe it saves the season. Maybe it gives just that enough of a new manager bounce that it turns it round to some degree. But look, something's got to be done because this is getting worse and worse and worse domestically. It really genuinely is. And it's wholly unacceptable. Right, let's have a little look, shall we, at some injury news that's come in. Obviously now, Liverpool were without Alisson yesterday. And this is what Arne Slot had to say in his post-match press conference. Alisson will definitely be out during the international break. Let's see afterwards. He then went on to explain that it will be touch and go that Alisson will be available for the Paris Saint-Germain games in the Champions League, which is very worrying. Look, I know Alisson has a dodgy injury history, and I know that he misses games and perhaps hasn't been as effective this season as in past seasons, but he's still the best goalkeeper in the world. He's still the best goalkeeper at the club by a long way. Yes, Mamalashvili pulled off 3 or 4 decent saves yesterday, but he still made some pretty horrific errors. Basically he was to blame for the first goal. His distribution was very, very poor. Alisson gives a bit more confidence to the back four, and I think there was a damage to the confidence in the back four because Alisson wasn't there. Mamalashvili obviously is nowhere near of the standard of Alisson. So, worrying news indeed. And look, this comes on the back of obviously Liverpool extending Alisson's contract, and it's one of the worrying things, about Alisson is this injury history that he has. It's something that needs to be looked at and something that does need to be addressed. Maybe we do need to be looking at a better goalkeeper in the summer, someone perhaps more reliable. And yes, Alisson has got that extension, but look, is that just so we can get a fee for him maybe? With his injury history, I don't know. It is a concern over Alisson, but he is still the best keeper at the club by some way. On Hugo Ekitike. Now, Ekitike obviously was involved in a collision with James Milner. I thought James Milner played really well yesterday, to be fair to him, at 40 years old, and him at 40 and Pascal Gross at 34 absolutely outran our midfield, which is pretty shameful, really. This is what Slot had to say as regards Hugo Ekitike. He said Hugo could play tomorrow if he had to. It was a dead leg. It was a collision that led to him going off. It was not helpful. Now, I don't know whether he's referencing Hugo going off not being helpful for Liverpool, which I don't think it was. It took away that, that pace being behind. It took away that aggression. It took away that out-and-out centre forward. We didn't have one yesterday. Or whether he's talking about Hugo getting a dead leg and Hugo perhaps him thinking that injury was not as serious as it turned out to be. I think Arne Slot's reaction to Hugo going down and him just yelling at him, get up, was a bit unhelpful, really, to be honest with you. He didn't know the extent of the injury. You can't from the sideline. So, Slot was a bit stupid there. But, look, at least one positive news is that Hugo Ekitike's injury is not serious and he will be back and available post-international break for Liverpool. Obviously, as long as he comes through internationals and doesn't get injured in those, which would be pretty bad indeed, especially with Alexander Isak still out. Although Isak apparently could well be back for the Paris Saint-Germain games. But look, before anyone gets excited, he isn't match fit. And it's going to take time for him to build his match fitness up. Something that does need to be taken into account. Right, some transfer news. Liverpool freshly linked with Anthony Gordon this morning, the Newcastle winger. Apparently he is a top target for Liverpool this summer. Look, I think we all know that Liverpool need wingers. Cody Gakpo was absolutely shocking yesterday, yet again. His statistics from yesterday's game were fairly appalling. Look, Rio Gamoa, obviously very talented, very promising, very up and coming. But look, we do need wingers. Mo Salah, I think, was likely to leave Liverpool this summer. Chiesa likely to leave Liverpool this summer. So at the end of the day, Liverpool do need to be looking to sign wingers. Now, Anthony Gordon is a player who has been linked with Liverpool before. He is a Liverpool fan. I know he's a player that divides the fan base. I know there's some that would love him at Liverpool, some that would hate him at Liverpool. Personally, I would welcome Anthony Gordon. I think he's a good player. I think he's fast, he's quick, he's aggressive. He knows where the goal is. He's decent with the assist. He's a good footballer, a decent footballer. Yes, doing business with Newcastle United, I think, would be tricky post Alexander Isak. But, he is, I think, a player Liverpool could well be looking at. This season in the Premier League, he's made 24 appearances, scored 5 goals and 2 assists. Champions League figures obviously slightly skewed by that Carabao game. 12 appearances, 10 goals, 2 assists. So 12 goal contributions in 12. In the FA Cup, 3 appearances, 1 goal, 1 assist. And in the Carabao Cup, 5 appearances. So this season looking pretty decent for Anthony Gordon overall. 44 appearances, 16 goals, 5 assists, 21 goal contributions coming for Anthony this season. I think that would be, certainly a player who could come in and add to this squad, and certainly someone that, I think would be a realistic target for Liverpool this summer. The other one, obviously, that keeps coming up is Michael Olise. A player who would cost, over £100 million to bring in. It would definitely be another one of those big marquee signings. The only thing I'm going to say on the Michael Olise deal and any prospective transfers is, this is the time when clubs are working on firming up interest in players and kind of trying to secure things for the summer. With Liverpool not knowing potentially who their manager could be next season and also what competition in Europe they're going to be playing in, it does kind of make securing those transfer deals very, very hard indeed. If we're offering Champions League football, the likes of Olise, Gordon, that's far more attractive to them than if we're offering Europa League. Now, I think Anthony Gordon probably would still come even if we were in the Europa League. However, I find it highly doubtful that Michael Olise would come if we were only offering Europa League football next season. So, look, it's not just the financial side of it. It's also being able to attract players. And I think having been in the Champions League does offer so much more in terms of pulling in players. And I think also, a solution on the manager needs to be found sooner rather than later. Guys, I'd love to know your thoughts on this one. Anyway, thank you for watching the Anfield Review podcast. Please obviously smash a like on the way out. Please comment, share, and of course, more importantly, subscribe and help to build the channel up. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you very, very soon.